You are all weirdos.
Weird science is the revolution. Weird science is the revolution.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Weird Science Comics YouTube channel, where I'm going to review Titans #1, the new issue from Tom Taylor with art by Nicola Scott. It feels weird to say the Titans book is finally here, since Tom Taylor essentially has been writing one for a while now. He's just been calling it Nightwing. And while that kind of lessens the overall excitement for this new book ever so slightly, I'm sure people are pumped for this issue. The Titans are a beloved team. Seeing them step up and replace the Justice League is another reminder that Dan Didio is not in charge anymore. But is this issue any good? As always, that will depend on what you expect to get from this. So let's jump into it after I ask everyone to subscribe to the channel, like the video, enable notifications, and let me know what you thought of Titans #1 in the comments below. The issue opens up with something that threw me off right away. I think anyone who has been a fan of Jeremy Adams' Wally West book will feel the same, and while it might be setting up the upcoming Flash run by Cy Spurrier, it sucks to start off this Titans book with yet another dagger in the hearts of Wally West fans. I mean, it does set up an intriguing mystery, but boy, the guy and his fans cannot catch a break. After seeing that Raven and Beast Boy are still a couple, Nightwing and Donna Troy go off on a recruitment trip to Garth and come up empty-handed. Why Garth doesn't want to join remains kind of a bit ambiguous, though Tom Taylor does insert his surface-level signaling a bit here, and unfortunately, that will continue throughout this issue. Now, I've talked about this before. I don't mind this as much as a lot of other people do. Actually, I agree with some of the issues that Tom Taylor wants to make a stand against, but he hardly ever goes beyond just mentioning it. What's worse, if he actually does offer solutions, they feel like they hardly address the actual problem and oftentimes seem like they would make things worse. It happened recently on Nightwing #100, where he has Dick Grayson upset about the overcrowded prison system, only for Nightwing to tear down a prison to build the new Titans Tower. Also, don't get me started that Nightwing supposedly saved the homeless children of Bloodhaven by throwing money at the problem, making a park where they can skateboard and eat cheap pizza, but still hasn't stopped the main cause of the issue, the serial killer Heartless. But that's just an aside. Back to this issue. Garth isn't joining because he has ocean problems to deal with. I really wanted him to mention what's going on with Aquaman at this moment, but he doesn't. And still, the ocean problems that he's dealing with, I hope that it turns out to be Trash Island and that he's turning that into an amusement park. But it's a shame he won't be joining the team. Oh well, we head off to the opening of Titans Tower, which gets interrupted by Raven and Beast Boy making out, and then an emergency call that Titano is about to go nuclear on a nuclear power plant. Now, I saw Tom Taylor yelling at people on Twitter about how Raven and Beast Boy have always been a couple, and most fans know that, right? So why does he spend so much time in this issue pushing it? It's nice enough, but it feels like he's trying to convince readers of something that doesn't need any convincing, which then makes something that isn't forced actually feel forced by the end, which is very, very odd. I have said this about his Nightwing book. A lot of people like the book, but it seems like the book is there to convince everybody that Nightwing is a great guy. But we know Nightwing's a great guy. You don't have to convince us of this. So I'm worried a bit about what this whole deal will turn into. But still, you end up having nice enough scenes, right? But it starts getting a little better once the team goes off to fight Titano. There is actually some fun to be had here. Beast Boy turns into a Tamarinian monster, and we get ourselves a kaiju battle. This is a team that has worked so much together that thankfully Taylor avoids the "we need to learn to be a team" bit and gets right to showing them being a well-oiled, kick-ass machine. And that's what they are. They deserve what they are getting here. They deserve to be a huge team, right? But something bad has to happen. Well, Peacemaker shows up and offers the team, says, hey, join the U.S. government. The U.S. president wants you to join up with the government. We can make all things great that way. And while it's another opportunity for Taylor to self-insert a bit here, Peacemaker showing up and who he ends up talking to on his little communicator, that is really intriguing. If DC is actually playing their cards right and connecting things with other Dawn of DC books like Doom Patrol and Green Arrow, that is something that I am here for, and I really, really hope that that is the case. Of course, by the end, the Titans find Wally, and that's the big thing going forward. It is a crazy cliffhanger, but instead of getting, the feels like I thought I might get, I just had a here we go again feeling with everything that has happened to Wally since the beginning of Rebirth. Now, this is a decent issue. I don't think it's perfect like a bunch of sus reviewers are going to tell you this week, but it still is good enough, and it sets up a crazy mystery and shows you the team in action. I am a Nicola Scott fan and always love everything she does, but overall, this actually didn't have the spark that some of the other Dawn of DC books have had. It's good, but it just didn't have that feeling that it's fresh and exciting. And maybe it's because it just feels like an extension of Taylor's Nightwing book, which will surely be enough for a lot of people to love this. But because of that, it just didn't feel as fresh to me. I'll certainly keep reading it, and I will suggest that everybody check it out and find out if they like it for themselves. And with that, I am going to give Titans #1 a respectable 7.8 out of 10. Like I said, I'm sure that'll clash with all the 10 out of 10 perfect scores that we're going to see from the actual sus reviewers out there. But still, they give Harley each week gets 10 out of 10s, and that's nonsense. I mean, I sit there and think, okay, Harley number 29 versus, say, Saga of Swamp Thing number 21. It doesn't add up. It really doesn't. So don't go with those. But as a side note, I always hate when we get editor's notes for something that isn't out yet, but having an editor's note in this book about Beast Boy's eye that points us to an issue that's almost a half a year away from being out, that's just damn ridiculous, and that kind of just made me scratch my head and groan. But overall, I did like this enough. I think that everybody should check it out, and I hope that it gets better and better as we kind of, settle in, find out what happened with Wally, all of that. I hope that this becomes one of the best books out there. So we'll see if that is the case, but that is the hopes and dreams. And with that, I do want to mention, I don't always mention it, but mention that if you do like what you hear on these YouTube videos, you should tune into our DC Comics podcast that we do each week. It comes out on Sunday on our regular podcast feed, and we deep dive more into these. Me and my man, Eric Shea, we get a little more into it sometimes. Like this may be a review that lasts an hour. That may, throw some people off, but it's a deep dive. So check that out. All of the things Weird Science will be in the show notes. You can check those out. But with that, thanks everybody. Let me know what you thought of this issue, and I will talk to you all later.
You are all weirdos.
Weird Science is the revolution. Weird Science is the revolution.